Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
Mox, the drums and horns are appropriate because we're on the eve of college football now. It's here, week 0. I've got 10 storylines that I'm tracking this season. We're going to talk about which coach gets fired first. But first, Chris Moxley, it's kind of the last domino, or the most recent domino in conference realignment, with the ACC adding Stanford, Cal, and SMU. I don't know about you, Chris Moxley, but when I think of the Atlantic Coast Conference, the very, very first thing I think of is Stanford University in California. This is Stanford University in California. I feel like you have a big problem with this. I do not. I don't have a problem with any of this.
I mean, I think it was on the show last week or 2 weeks ago where I said Stanford is the perfect fit if we ignore geography. And so was Cal Berkeley. I mean, they're both like high-end academic schools who have very little interest in playing in the NIL game, and that's largely true for over half the ACC, Duke, North Carolina, Virginia. Like, those schools pride themselves on academic institutions, and they still refer to their players as student athletes, which is essentially becoming an antiquated term. I don't hate it. I just don't really get it. I guess, like, what is the point of this? So SMU is joining as well. SMU is giving up 7 years of conference TV revenue in the AAC to join. So the first 7 years that they're in the ACC, they'll get no money, which is whatever. They're not getting that much now. But still, like, they're foregoing like 40 plus million over time. That probably adds up. I think that this boils down to one thing. It's the ACC wants to have a seat at the table when inevitable realignment of like the mega conferences happen. And the ACC is saying, hey, we have Stanford, which is one of the best athletic departments in the country, probably the best. We have these high performing schools. We have a TV deal that nobody can get out of and nobody can buy out of. Florida State, who is taking Saudi oil money, well, not taking Saudi oil money, but wanted to buy out of this deal. It's basically trying to lock everybody in place is really what it is.
I don't have a problem. I think that there is a generation of college football fans, probably older than 45, that when the dominoes started falling on conference realignment, they get up in arms about, oh, we're not going to have our rivalries, et cetera, et cetera. We just want the games, and if Michigan and Ohio State are playing, if Texas and Oklahoma are playing, that's fine. Who gives a damn if like West Virginia and Pitt are playing? Now, I understand that they care. But generally speaking, I just don't have a problem with this. And groups, whether it be a PTA, a union, or conference, universities within a conference, they're all trying to gather their collective resources to create leverage. And I don't have a problem with conferences doing this here so that they can command more with television deals, with be Apple or Amazon or Netflix or whatever, whoever's paying these exorbitant prices for.
Do you think it's worth more now?
I don't have a problem with that. Do I think the ACC is worth more?
Is worth more because nobody wanted Stanford, nobody wanted Cal. They're left out in the Pac 4. What value do they actually add to the TV deal? I think at the end of the day, it's like nothing, in my opinion, which is why I don't think this makes any sense.
I mean, if we're talking about the brands in the ACC, it's still what Clemson, Florida State is to the extent
Florida State, Miami. Those are the
biggest
three,
brands.
And Florida State was trying to join the Big Ten like literally 2 weeks ago, and they were trying to finance it using the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So let's not act like these teams are trying to get out of it.
Neither one of these three brands breaches that top 3. They might not even breach the top 5, even though academically and prestige wise they're up there. But what matters is football. As football programs, the ACC is not bringing in a heavy hitter here with Stanford, Cal, or SMU.
No,
that's the long and the short of it.
They immediately joined to become the level of Syracuse, Virginia, like maybe Virginia Tech's a little bit better, but I mean, you're not improving the quality of football in the ACC. You've only made it worse. Like that's my 2 cents on it. Despite I think the edge that I think the ACC thinks it's getting is bringing in quality athletic departments. But like, well, what does that matter if you're not generating revenue? Because non-revenue sports is really what's driving Stanford and what's driving Cal. So I don't know. It doesn't
Well,
make
academics is what's driving Stanford and Cal. That's what's driving those institutions. That
Sure. Yeah, I can't wait for Miami. I can't wait for Boston College to travel to Cal for an in-conference matchup.
I mean, it's better
ridiculous.
It's the same as Rutgers and USC. That's going to be an interconference match.
Oh, that's Pac-12 after dark. That would be great.
I think before we get into the season is starting tomorrow. It's starting tomorrow, and I want to fire some people already. But before we do that, I think we have an announcement that we need to make. We have an announcement that we need to make. The tailgate, Campus2Canton's pregame show, is coming to you live on the Better Sports Network tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. It will be simulcast on the Campus2Canton YouTube page and the Better Sports Network YouTube page. We are going to be taking you from 10 a.m. to 12. This is our third year doing it, our first partnering with Better Sports. Shout out to Matt Deutsch for getting this organized. Will Tootie, our producer, who's on the ones and twos today. I don't even know why I said that. On the ones and twos today. He's going to be our producer on come Saturday morning. So make sure you get your coffee. We're going to be talking betting. We're going to be talking our rankings for the week. And we're just going to be having fun. We're just going to be having fun. So hang out with us 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. for a show, quite frankly, that doesn't exist anywhere else in the country. There's nobody else that's going to tie in the betting angle, the fantasy angle, and all of that in one show. So hang out with us tomorrow at 10 a.m. Chris Moxley, let's start firing some people. I want to know, who do you have as the first coach getting fired this season?
I think the first coach is Neil Brown at West Virginia. Incredibly underwhelming since coming over from Troy. They've one winning season, and it's the COVID year. And I don't really count the COVID year when we're talking about team's performance. I mean, that was such an anomalous season that it's really hard to nail down that that's what that team is. West Virginia has not shown it at all. He's supposed to be like this offensive mastermind. He's taking play calling duties back over. Like, I don't think that's really going to help. I don't like the way they've built this roster. I think it's going to be pretty weak on offense. The defense was okay, but like that's not really a testament to Neil Brown. That's more of a testament to the defensive coaching that they've had. So I think he's getting fired. I think they wanted to fire him last year. I was actually shocked they brought him back. I thought he was going to get fired last season. So he's my number one candidate. I think that he's gone if they start skidding, which I expect them to.
I know we're expected to know every single team. I can't remember the last time I watched a West Virginia game. It's been a long time. And the only player that we care about on West Virginia as far as fantasy goes is probably CJ Donaldson, the running back, a bigger 246'2", 240-pound running back who played tight end. Well, came in as a tight end, converted to running back, and was a little bit of a cheat code in college fantasy because he was getting running back snaps, but had a tight end designation, and you can slide him in. You could slide him into your tight end spot. That's the only guy that I know on West Virginia. I'm sorry. I know I'm supposed to be an expert, but I'm telling you right now my ignorance about West Virginia because there's not a single player on that team that I care about other than CJ Donaldson.
I think Garrett Green's your type of quarterback, if that makes you interested.
What's my type of quarterback? What does that mean?
He's like a Mountaineer, Bo Nix, Zach Wilson type guy.
A gunslinger?
Yeah.
I may have to go take a look at him.
He's not that good of a passer, but he's
and that's my type. That's my type of quarterback. He's not that good of a passer. He's not that accurate.
I mean, we got Will in the chat saying Robbie Ashford. Who's your favorite quarterback at Auburn? It's Robbie Ashford.
Robbie Ashford, who did not get the starting quarterback position there, at Auburn, that went to Peyton Thorne, who doesn't even know the playbook yet, but somehow became the starting quarterback.
And wasn't even good at Michigan State when he was there.
He was okay. Peyton Thorne has like the touchdown record at Michigan State. That's how great the single season touchdown record at Michigan State. I'm pretty sure Peyton Thorne has it.
It's not
like
Kirk Cousins?
No, it's like 27 touchdowns.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it's Peyton Thorne. Like just 27 passing TDs. Not Kirk Cousins, not Jeff Smoker. No. It's Peyton Thorne.
All right. Well,
who else you got
to know?
Who else you got getting fired, canned?
Tom Allen, the head coach at Indiana. I think that 1 year, again, COVID season, this is kind of a theme in a lot of who I think is going to get fired because it was such an anomaly.
Can I say this? You got Tom Allen at Indiana.
Yeah.
That 2021 season was magical for Indiana with Michael Penix Jr. at the helm. They beat Penn State to start the season on that 2-point conversion. It was a 2-point conversion or a touchdown. I think it was a 2-point conversion where he stretched out and got it. They hadn't beat Penn State since like 1991 or something like that. And you know who called that game? Your boy did. Your boy called Indiana getting the upset in that one. My love affair with Michael Penix Jr. was well documented at that point. And if you don't know, yeah, the lefty who's now at Washington can absolutely sling it. But
that was the COVID year though. Like that's what I'm saying. Like that was the perfect storm where Kalen DeBoer was there. Michael Penix was healthy for the whole year. Like
Freifogel, Wop Fillier, they had a really good offense there.
Yeah, it was. They finished ranked 12th in the country. And then they haven't replicated that success at all under Tom Allen. I think it's Tom Allen is like put up or shut up, and I don't think he's going to put up. I really don't. I don't like this roster. I don't know how you can have confidence in the quarterback situation. We like Taven Jackson, who's a transfer in from Tennessee, but like if he hasn't won the job yet, and I haven't seen that he has, he's battling with Brandon Sorsby, who I don't think is a good quarterback. So there's a lot of worry for me and with Tom Allen, and his buyout isn't like anything super crazy. I mean, it's expensive, but I think that Indiana can. I mean, they have a little bit of money, so he's my second head coach fired.
When are you going to say Jimbo? I mean, Jimbo has to be on this list.
I have two others before I have Jimbo, and the only reason I don't have Jimbo is because it's a $77 million buyout.
They're already talking about like raising the money to buy him.
He's not getting fired. I just can't see Texas A&M just paying him $77 million because it's full guaranteed because when he re-signed after that 9-win season in it might have also been 2020, might have been the COVID year as well. They gave him a fully guaranteed deal, which I don't know why you would do that, but yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I have the other three I have above him actually. Butch Jones at Arkansas State. I just don't think he's done a good job since taking over there. A lot of really poor offensive performances, and the defense has been terrible. I mean, they're a bottom 5 team power rankings, usually speaking. Tony Elliott at Virginia, I think was a bad hire when it happened.
Who could have saw Tony Elliott, the former offensive coordinator at Clemson, not doing a good job at Virginia?
We saw that one coming a mile away, and I mean, it was tragic what happened at the end of the year with 3 of their players killed in a shooting. But it's going to be really tough for him, I think, to live up to any sort of expectations when he was hired. And I think he could be. I thought he would have been gone at the end of last year. I thought he could have been just like a one and done coach because it clearly wasn't working. And I think he got a little bit of breathing room because of what happened, and understandably so. So I think he's going to be gone sooner rather than later. And the other one is Jeff Hafley, who is the head coach at Boston College. I think is pretty close. Another Clemson guy, right? Pretty close to being fired. He needs to have a good season this year, and I think it'll be better. They went 3-9 last year. He had been 500 or better in the other seasons, but the offensive line, I mean, I don't think they had any of their starters by the end of the year, and I think half their 2 deep was hurt. So I expect them to be a little bit better, but they need to be, I think, a lot better for Jeff Hafley not to get fired.
You think Jimbo's contract is going to prevent him from getting fired? So
$77 million is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but the expectations there are high. They start off with New Mexico, then they have that home and home with Miami, where they actually go to Miami this season. Then they get Auburn right into SEC schedule, Auburn and Arkansas. I think that there's a slight chance that they could lose 2 of their first 5. They go. This is one where I want to see if there's some smoke there.
So I actually think God, I feel like such an idiot sometimes when I say these things. I think this could be Texas A&M's year to like actually be competitive. I think it lines up pretty well. I think they have a really strong and mature roster. I think they're finally getting guys into their second and third year from those really big recruiting classes that he had the best recruiting class of all time 2 years ago. This is a guy who can recruit, and I think those players are maturing into roles. So I think this could be their year. But if it's not, I'm not sure Joe's getting fired. I just don't know what you do. You have a guy who's continually delivering you top 3 classes. If he actually hands off play calling duties, which I think he could, then we're talking about, I think, a better team. His playbook is notoriously complex, and nobody can learn it because you're starting for like a year at the school, and you can't get concepts down. It doesn't make sense to implement in college, but we'll see. I just think
they bring in offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino, who was the offensive coordinator, the head coach when Lamar Jackson had his Heisman Trophy winning season there at Louisville. And Bobby Petrino had a couple of stints at Louisville, including before Lamar Jackson. The last time that Louisville was good was with Brian Brom and Harry Douglas and Michael Bush. Remember Michael Bush being good? Chris, you might be too young to remember.
No, I do.
Michael Bush,
Oakland Raiders running back Michael Bush.
Oakland Raiders and Chicago Bears running back Michael Bush. He suffered an injury, but was headed towards being like a Heisman Trophy type candidate before that injury. That's the Bobby Petrino, who's a little bit older. Last stop was at Montana State as a head coach. But, Jimbo's trying to do something, bringing one of the good old boys.
I think he's a good hire. If you ignore his off-the-field issues, I think he's a pretty interesting hire. I actually think he can coach. Do you remember that Missouri State game last year where he kept it close with Arkansas?
Do I remember what? No, I don't remember that. I don't remember.
All right. Well, he was competitive against Arkansas. There was a lot of bad blood, as you may have seen by the graphic that was just on our screen. But yeah, he did a good job coaching that Missouri State team. So I wouldn't be surprised if he calls it like a good. He just needs to actually be the play caller and not Jimbo for it to happen. But I think Texas A&M could be. I've taken some overs on them, and I don't feel great.
My concern would be that the game has passed him by. He is an older. When I think of offensive innovation, I think of young guys. Lincoln Riley, Stephen Sarkisian, young guys. Zach Kitley at Texas A&M or Texas Tech, young guy. I don't think of Bobby Petrino is probably in his 60s, in his mid 60s. I just don't.
Do you think Bobby Petrino?
Todd Monken is an older coach and just got promoted from the Bulldogs to the Baltimore Ravens. So maybe he can innovate.
He's 62.
He's 62.
I got a question for you. Do you think he still owns a motorcycle?
Yeah, of course.
I do
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely, Coach Neck Brace. Okay. Anybody on your list of candidates who we think are getting fired that you didn't mention already? We got Neil Brown, Jeff Hapley, potentially Jimbo, Tom Allen, Butch Jones, and did I miss somebody?
No, I think you got everyone.
Okay.
I don't think I have another one. It's pretty. Danny Gonzalez at New Mexico. If you want to go like real deep, like New Mexico's a bottom 3 team in the country, and they haven't improved at all under his leadership. So I think he could get fired this year. But I think people are more interested in the Neil Browns of the world, and I would say Mel Tucker if Mel Tucker wasn't in the exact same boat as Jimbo, which is
where he has a huge contract.
Yeah,
Michigan State is headed to be bad again. They're looking like they're going to be bad again because they're not recruiting as well as Texas A&M.
Do you think the one that I didn't include that I think is kind of an interesting name? Do you think Greg Schiano has more leeway at Rutgers because of what he did like 10 years, 15 years ago?
Rutgers does not seem to be prioritizing football, and who are you going to replace Greg Schiano with?
It feels like it's almost it's not worse than the Kyle Flood era, but nothing's panned out at Rutgers since he's taken over. They were expected to be like a 5 to 6 wins for Rutgers is a great season, and I think Schiano should get them there, but they're not.
All right, when we come back, I'm going to give you 10 headline storylines that I'm paying attention to as this 2023 season gets kicked off tomorrow. It's Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network.
Campus to Canton.
What can we expect from you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 1:38 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Yeah! Come on! Let's go! Come on, dig it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire, over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush, you were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no!
on the loose. Watch out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations, and no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!
I think Will Chudy liked the last segment.
That was good. I enjoyed that. But you know what's better? The Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. You get the Fantasy Football Draft Guide and Cheat Sheet. You get a 7-day trial at Fantasy Alarm with the All-Pro subscription. And you get the Fantasy Football Draft Guide and a phenomenal cheat sheet. I know draft's kicking off very soon. I'm out of touch with the NFL. So this is something that I would use. I have no idea what's going on. I need that type of cheat sheet. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft to get the All-Pro subscription, get that guide, get that cheat sheet, and make sure that you nail your drafts because I'm going to need that. And if you're listening to our college show, you might need it as well.
We are going to be live in just a couple of hours. So come back with us tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. There is no, as far as I know, there is no college fantasy pregame show like what we have in the NFL. Everybody has an NFL pregame fantasy show. Every three-letter network does. But the Better Sports Network is the first one to have a college fantasy pregame show, interweaving betting, player props. I forgot to say that. We're going to help you with your player props, too. So tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Mox, before we get into my 10 storylines that I'm tracking this year, I have to mention what's happening at Ohio State. What is happening at Ohio State? What? This week?
I didn't say anything.
I'm not going to rub it in.
I didn't say
you're
anything.
You're laughing because you think I'm going to rub something in. I have been a big fan of Corner Canyon High School high 4-star prospect Devin Brown, who came in the class, who was a freshman last year, comes in the class after Kyle McCord. Ryan Day, the head coach at Ohio State, who I met at Massillon, Ohio at the Elite 11 event last year. Ryan Day announced that neither one has separated from the other and that he could see them both playing into the season to figure out who's getting the starting job. You know what that means to me, Chris Moxley. That means that this freshman is outplaying this junior, and Ryan Day doesn't know what to do. That's what it means. Because if Kyle McCord, the third-year player, if he was winning this job clearly, they would have already announced him as the starter. The problem is Devin Brown, who is a gunslinger, who is athletic, he can run, he can fit the ball into tight windows, he's fun to watch. He's causing a problem in practice. That problem being, we had this schedule, this was going to go a certain way, and the players see it, the coaches see it. Devin Brown's going to end up winning that job. Allegedly, there was an anonymous coaches poll taken as to who the starter should be. And the reports are, if you read the message boards, is that coaches poll leaned in favor of Devin Brown. I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat here. We know that this kid can ball. But for Ryan Day, we don't usually see him go with the younger player. Usually he goes with the guy who's been in the system. Chris Moxley, tell me I'm wrong. The longer this plays out, the longer Ryan Day doesn't announce Kyle McCord as the starter, the more it looks like this younger kid is beating out the veteran. True or false? Answer the question.
You've given me a loaded question, but the way that you set it up. Yes, the longer competition goes on, the more uncertainty there is, period. I don't know how I can argue with that one. I have maintained over time that Kyle McCord is going to be the guy who takes the first snap for the Ohio State Buckeyes in 2023. I think Devin Brown is going to play in that game because they play Indiana and they're favored by, I think, 5 touchdowns. So they'll both get snaps. I think we might have a J.J. McCarthy, Cade McNamara situation, which was the case at Michigan last year, where Cade started game 1, J.J. McCarthy started game 2, and then they who it was going to be, and it was obviously going to be J.J. McCarthy the whole time.
But Jim Harbaugh was scared to name J.J. McCarthy the starter?
Yes.
Just like Ryan Day is scared to name Devin Brown the starter.
Ryan Day, I mean, we can say whatever we want on here. This is our show, right? Ryan Day is and has always been a coward. He's the reason they lost the Georgia game. He's the reason they lost the Georgia game, straight up. He's a cowardly head coach. And he doesn't have what it takes to, make those tough decisions. So I think he would name Devin Brown. The report came out that you're referring to about the straw poll that it was 50-50 deadlocked between McCord and Devin Brown.
That's what he said. He admitted to the straw poll being taken. Yeah.
Yes, the straw poll was absolutely taken among the coaching staff. The message board saying that it was Devin Brown does not surprise me. Kyle McCord has been in the system a year longer. He was actually high school teammates with Barman Harrison Jr., so I think there's a little bit of familiarity there. I don't know if that's playing into the politics of it or what, but I think Kyle McCord is starting. I have maintained since Devin Brown was recruited as I think it was QB5 in his class last year, that he is the better player. He opens up the offense more. He gives it a higher ceiling. But I'm still not convinced he's starting week 1, even if I think he's a better player. And I don't think Kyle McCord's a bad player either. I just think Devin Brown does things that that can be game breaking. Stuff you saw CJ Stroud do against Ohio State last year that he didn't do in the regular season.
You want me to give you a fact? You want me to give you a fact? Ryan Day, we can
Coward.
shake. We can shake. We can shake. I think the fact that he took a straw poll as to who should be the starter tells you all he needs to know. Tell you all you need to know. If I'm leading a university's football program, I don't need to take a straw poll to tell me who's winning the job. Weak. Do you remember when UNC did the coin flip last year? Yes, I do.
Coin flip between Drake May and Jacoby Criswell. Jacoby Criswell transferred, is now the backup at Arkansas, and Drake May is a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. So this is how this stuff usually happens.
Okay, timeout. We need to set the context for this. So last year, after Sam Howell left North Carolina, Drake May and Jacoby Criswell were battling for the starting job in the spring. Mac Brown claimed, just like Ryan Day is claiming here, that it was dead even. So we all knew that it was going to be Drake May. They claimed that they flipped a coin, but it was like nobody saw this coin flip, if I remember correctly. No,
it happened in the locker room prior to the game.
In the locker room prior to the game. And they just told the players what the results were, and Drake May ended up starting the spring game. And of course, as Mox said, Ryan Day, we can't shake her. That's not just neither here or there. It's just he's not. You got a lot of alpha males, in the football game. Ryan Day is not one who's going to show you his masculinity with his handshake. That's all.
That's a first-hand experience. Can you report that?
That's a first-hand experience. Yes, I'm reporting that firsthand. Let's get to my 10 headlines and storylines that I'm looking forward to. You won't say it, Chris Moxley, but I will. I think the fact is that Jimbo Fisher might be on the hot seat. 5-7 last year, not bowl eligible. Yes, they had that $77 million buyout, but this is a team that is already spending a lot of money on its recruiting classes, and obviously they're taking the bringing in Bobby Petrino, in my opinion, is sort of like flashing the red lights or something. Like it's signaling that, hey, we need to change something here. And so if they get off to a rough start, maybe the school doesn't have the money to buy him out. But you cannot tell me that the headlines on, Paul Feinbaum's show and Josh Pate's show on CBS, that they're going to be talking about how the fans want Jimbo out of there. That's going to happen regardless of whether or not the university can actually pay the $77 million buyout. The other coaching hot seat that I'm looking at is in Florida. Billy Napier, Sunbelt Billy, who went from Louisiana to Florida. Both of these teams in the SEC, both of these teams have high expectations, and their expectations are only going to get high. Like the competition is only going to get stiffer next year when the conference adds Texas and Oklahoma. Like these fans are not going to put up with going 6-7 like they did last year, misutilizing Anthony Richardson, one of the freakiest athletes that we've seen. I just don't think that they're going to tolerate it. They didn't tolerate mediocrity with Dan Mullen. Why would they tolerate mediocrity with Billy Napier, who's never
Dan Mullen wasn't even mediocre. That was the whole thing. He went to the SEC championship.
That's very true.
We got rid of him for Sunbelt Billy.
That's very true. They replaced Anthony Richardson with Graham Mertz, who was a high-level recruit, in like 2020, maybe 2019, a pure pocket passer who can make quick decisions from the pocket when given time, but he struggled at Wisconsin. He really did. And the problem is that Billy Napier has not been a coach who elevates the players, who elevates the play of his quarterback. Just when you think about guys who elevate the play of at that position, Billy Napier, not one of them. As a matter of fact, I think that he probably is a net negative. And so now you get a player who doesn't have the talent that Anthony Richardson has, and Graham Mertz, and he's going to be pegged as the starter. I don't like how things are looking there at Florida. That looks like it's going to be a bad team. Maybe they don't fire him, but that is another team with high expectations. That's number 10. Number 9 on my list is, can Tennessee keep the train rolling? Mox, you're younger than me once again, but there was a time when T. Martin and Peerless Price and like they were throwing the ball down there at Tennessee. They had a renaissance last year, bringing in Josh Heupel running Art Briles' air raid system with Hendon Hooker under center. He's going to be replaced. They lose Jalen Hyatt, who is the Blitnikoff Award winner. He goes to the Giants. By the way, NFL, stop giving Jalen Hyatt free releases. Just stop it. I don't want to see Jalen Hyatt scoring another long touchdown because he's got a one-on-one matchup with their safety. Have we not learned anything from that Alabama game when he was running all through that secondary? They lose Jalen Hyatt. They lose Cedric Tillman, who's also looking good for the Browns. Maybe I underestimated how good Cedric Tillman was.
He was a better prospect than Jalen Hyatt was, in my opinion. I thought he was a better player at the boundary.
I did not realize that because they're really different style players. Jalen Hyatt has the world-class speed, and Cedric Tillman just a big guy. They beat Alabama last year. I think that the game actually got Jalen Hyatt the Blitnikoff Award. But we're going to see did he have 5 touchdowns that game?
If he didn't have 5, he had 4. I mean, I remember, I'm pretty sure he had 5. 2 were on blown coverage, 2 were on Alabama's box safety. And then the other one
now on my Detroit Lions.
I mean, it was that was a terrible game plan against Hyatt. I don't know what Saban was really thinking there, but yeah, that was his blow up game.
But we know that in college football, systems can make players, and there's probably no place in the country that we're going to test whether or not that's true than with what they're trying to replace in Tennessee. You got quarterback Joe Milton, who's strong arm, inaccurate. You've got Squirrel White, who we expect to replace Jalen Hyatt. He's a similar style player that has the speed. They bring in a transfer, the big boundary guy, in Deontay Thornton from Oregon. He looks like he's going to be a starter. Brew McCoy is a former 5-star prospect who committed to 3 different schools or whatever before he's now at Tennessee. But can Josh Heupel replace the production and make Tennessee the program that it was last year, or do they take a step back? It would be reasonable to expect that they take a step back. So I'm looking at that. The other one is I keep bringing up this name because I think that there is a chance that this guy could be the next, Lincoln Riley. Is Zach Kittley. Zach Kittley, of course, responsible for Bailey Zappe's he had almost 6,000 yards passing that 2021 season. Jarrett Stern's the leading wide receiver on that team. I think he was 36 yards away from 2,000 yards receiving. He parlayed that 1 year at Western Kentucky to the offensive coordinator position at Texas Tech. The reason why I'm bringing up this name is, one, that offense didn't play as well as we thought last year. They did deal with some injuries at the quarterback position. But the reason why I'm tracking, his progress is, one, to see if they can do it better this year. But 2, Texas Tech is now starting to get big name recruits. They have a 5-star wide receiver in Micah Hudson, who a lot of people have pegged as the best wide receiver in the class next year, going to Texas A&M. I have to believe that is attributable to, I want to play in that type of offense. And if Zach Kittley can recruit like that at Texas Tech, what can he do? What happens at Alabama with a new offensive coordinator? There's a potential that Tommy Rees could be one and done if Zach Kittley replicates or does 95% of what he did at Western Kentucky in that 1 year. And then he becomes the hottest name on the market where, they want to bring him in at USC. Well, probably not USC because Lincoln Riley's the offensive coordinator, but they want to bring him in at a blue blood school. Clemson doesn't hire offensive coordinators outside of the school anyway. You know what I mean, though. One of these big jobs, we could see Zach.
He'll make the P5 coordinator jump before I think he becomes a head coach. I mean, that's
100%.
He's under, what is he, 28? I mean, he's real young. Wow.
I didn't realize he was that young. But he is a name that absolutely, a potential shooting star.
Can I add an 8B to that real quick?
Yeah.
I feel the same way about Ryan Grubb, who is the offensive coordinator at Washington under Kalen DeBoer.
Interesting.
I think he and Zach Kittley are the next 2 offensive minds who take this sport to the next level.
You know how much I love Kalen DeBoer. So that you had my curiosity. Wait, what? How does it go?
You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Now you have my attention. I'm going to get your attention when we come back. I'm going to go 8 through 1. I'm going to do it a lot faster because we only got 20 minutes left when we come back. It's Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network.
Breece Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players, I'm sure you have too, Kev. Had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with 2 wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week 1, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid third.
Right. He may go 101 or RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that even if he's healthy in spring and the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I still like if I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like he's on a pitch count. Like I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like he's still going to get the high value touches. So yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So like if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get 2 wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes you think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like because of we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week 1. This is not, we'll see what happens. We're taking it day by day. We're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week 1. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well.
Go ahead, Mox. I see you, Mox.
I'm jamming, dude.
Baila, papi, baila.
Will's got her back tonight.
He does. All the time.
All right, let's talk about where to watch better sports shows. So we were lucky enough to be gifted. Talk with Matt Deutsch. He said, we want to have you on 10 to 12. Talked about that at the beginning of the show. I think we'll have an awesome lineup this year. We have a ton of content on the Better Sports Network. Join all of our live talk shows on the Better Sports Network YouTube channel. Call in or live chat with our hosts and community. I mean, we had a ton of fun last year with callers who were coming in from tailgates or early in the morning, talk about their teams. I mean, shout out to our guy Gator Jay. We were talking about him before the show. Ton of fun. Watch all of our shows and see our clips of the best moments that we have. And some of them are pretty funny. I think y'all will enjoy them. Check them out on YouTube, Twitter, bettersports.com. Some really, really fun stuff. And just engage with us while we're live too.
I think one of the most memorable moments from last year was a co-host on this show, Matt Bruning, who hasn't been on the show for a while, but he will be. He went to the Texas-Alabama game last year, and he was going around, and I was shouting instructions into the microphone, losing all of my professionalism and decorum because I wanted him to go talk to people who were tailgating, and I was trying to, be the producer while hosting the show, screaming into the microphone. So hopefully you'll join us tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time, so we can have a ratchet time. That's what I want to do. Tomorrow live 10 a.m. Eastern time. All right, I don't know why it took me 15 minutes to go through two headlines. Let me go through 8 through 1. Or excuse me, I gave you number 8. Let me just recap. So number 10 was Florida and Texas A&M, the potential hot seats there in the coaching position. Can Tennessee keep it up this year? And then number 8 the evolution of Zach Kittley and just tracking that Texas Tech offense this year, and then Zach Kittley's trajectory. Number 7 is Luther Burden at Missouri. Luther Burden is a wide receiver. He was the number 1 wide receiver recruit in last year's class as a freshman. When we're talking about like athleticism, he's 5'11", 208, and I tell you who he reminds me of. He reminds me of DJ Moore at Maryland. However, DJ Moore was used a little bit beyond the line of scrimmage. His body type and play style is like DJ Moore at Maryland, but his utilization is like Rondale Moore at Purdue, where he's really around the line of scrimmage. Only averaged 8.3 yards per reception last year, 45 receptions, 375 yards, 6 TDs. He's going to be the focal point of the offense this year, with Dominic Lovett having transferred to Georgia, and quite frankly, he's the best player on their offense. He's a physical specimen. He's hard to tackle, but he could be a guy that gets long touch. He returns punts. He beat all of our year 1 0 theory thresholds, which is basically a statistical correlation between fantasy and how well a college player performs at the next level. Performed well in those metrics, but when you look at him, you're like, why are they just using this guy around the line of scrimmage? He's a wide receiver. Deploy him down the field. I want to track that. That's number 7. Number 6 is the quarterback rooms at Ohio State and Alabama. I mentioned earlier in the show, Devin Brown and Kyle McCord. I'm not going to recount it, but Kyle McCord, in my opinion, is a potential top 10 overall draft pick, NFL draft pick, if he gets that job, right up there with Drew Aller, both of whom we haven't seen play yet, but both very talented players, both in their second years. Next year will be their third. They'll be draft eligible. And if Devin Brown gets the starting job, balls out this year, we're talking about a potential, again, top 10 NFL draft pick next year. That's what I'm looking at number 6. And let me mention, at Alabama, we're used to Mac Jones, Bryce Young, Tua Tagovailoa. That team is transitioning to being something that's more ground and pound, more conservative, more lean on its defense, because Jalen Milroe has been announced as the starter. And if Jalen Milroe is your quarterback, that means you're about to run the ball, because he's not a great passer. He's not dynamic. He's dynamic as a rusher, but when you're game planning for, that type of quarterback who can't pass, defenses are probably going to be able to stop them when they're one-dimensional. And that Alabama team is looking like they might be one-dimensional this year. So I'm looking at Jalen Milroe. His backup is either going to be the Notre Dame transfer Tyler Buckner, who ran for 1,500 yards the last time we saw him play a full year of football, which is in high school, and then Ty Simpson, who was a 5-star quarterback out of Tennessee who can scramble, do the backyard, run around type of stuff. It's going to be one of those two. So I want to see if Jalen Milroe falters. Do they bring in Ty Simpson? Do they bring in Tyler Buckner? And can they change the dynamic of the offense?
Does it concern you about Jalen Milroe that he basically almost cost Alabama the game against Texas A&M last year? I mean, they won by 4, but he was horrendous. Or he just like chalk it up to, he was terrible.
He was bad, and you can tell he was bad because if I remember that game correctly, the concepts that they were running were go routes and crossers, which is like some of the most simple thing. And then he was missing on some of the crossers, where you run a wide receiver across the line, across the field. It can beat man, it can beat zone. Like, you can't really double team a player across the field. And they were running like all this simple stuff, and Jalen Milroe wasn't hitting it. Does it concern me? I mean, he had all week to practice because Bryce Young was out.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, he got the full spring and this fall camp, kind of knowing that he was going to be appointed as the starter. They have the opportunity to build an offense around his strengths. So I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you, with Jalen Milroe being pegged as the starter this entire time, because they have the opportunity again to tailor an offense to what he can do well. So let's see what they look like.
So you think it's going to be him for like week 1? Do you think it should be him?
I I don't know what Ty Simpson has looked like in practice. So they both turned the ball over in the spring game, and I know Nick Saban is one of these. If you're a gunslinger who's going to like occasionally turn the ball over when you're trying to like feel yourself out, Nick Saban is probably not the guy that you want to play for because that's going to get you on the bench. And now I wouldn't have a problem with that because I understand like he's trying to see what his limits are, Ty Simpson. I don't know. I really don't know. I get the impression that Nick Saban is going to play okay, let's not turn it over. Let's punt if we need to. Let's run the ball. Let's play conservatively. Let's just win the games. Who cares if we're flashy? Because if you remember, like that's what Nick Saban was before Tua Tagovailoa, even with Jalen Hurts. Like Alabama was not
this the Blake Sims. We're going back to the Blake Sims era.
Blake Sims, what's your boy name? AJ McCarron. Like that's those teams. I'm just generally like those teams were not sexy. They did not pass the ball. They relied on Mark Ingram. They relied on Derrick Henry. And Alabama's backfield they don't have a guy like Mark Ingram or Derrick Henry, but
they have some really good backs this year, though.
They have some really good backs this year. So
all right, keep going. Sorry I interrupted you.
Who is going to emerge in the 2023 class after Marvin Harrison Jr.? So the 2023 class, the NFL draft class, it wiped out established names in college football, especially at the wide receiver position. You got Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Josh Downs, who was really productive for a very long time. And so it's like there's a question about who emerges after Marvin Harrison, who we expect to be a top draft pick. I think that the wide receivers at Washington are potentially candidates to emerge. Jalen McMillan is a slot wide receiver. Rome Odunze is a veteran boundary guy, 6'4", 205 pounds or so. On that Cedric Tillman spectrum, might be a little bit of a better prospect, more athletic than Cedric Tillman. Is going to be more explosive and productive in productivity for Washington. He's a candidate. I love Barian Brown. Barian Brown is one of the most explosive players in the country as a kick returner. He was great as a freshman. I wouldn't say he was great. He did have a great game against Georgia, but 6'1", really thin, like 170 pounds, but a sprinter. Somebody who can take the top off the defense. He can run after the catch. Can he round out his game? Be a route runner, somebody who gets open, somebody who breaks tackles, somebody who can make cornerbacks turn the wrong way. I want to see him. He's a candidate.
Best returner in the country.
Best kick returner in the country. He was the best kick returner in the country last year.
As a true freshman.
Yeah. He actually like fell down on like two kick return where he would have had touchdowns, or everybody would have known. Like two kick returns where he fell down.
Yeah, he's
and then Emeka Egbuka at Ohio State, who's probably going to play the slot there. He's another candidate. Another top wide receiver recruit, the top wide receiver recruit in his class of 2020. So can he emerge as being, a dynamic option besides Marvin Harrison Jr.? He's a candidate, but that's what I'm looking for. That's at number 5. At number 4 is this conversation that has gone on in like the Devy community. Who's the better running back? Quinshon Judkins, who had the production, or Quinshon Judkins out of Ole Miss, or Nicholas Singleton, who, in my opinion, has everything else: the athleticism, the body type. What?
It's like many people are saying Quinshon Judkins is better than Nick Singleton.
There are a lot of people out there who think Quinshon Judkins is better than Nick Singleton because he had a little bit more production.
You got to set the record straight. Do it.
I mean, Nicholas Singleton is like 230 pounds and runs 22 miles per hour, is like a headbanger. He's like a Nick Chubb clone, in my opinion. He's a Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, that spectrum of player. There's no question, in my opinion, who reigns supreme in the class of 2025. Now, the problem is that Quinshon Judkins is going to be the primary ball carrier and probably the focal point of Ole Miss's offense, while Nicholas Singleton splits time with Katron Allen. He's still a better player. Like, he's still the player, in my opinion, who's better built for the NFL. Quinshon Judkins is going to be, 210 pounds? Nicholas Singleton is 230 pounds.
Yeah, and I don't think Judkins is near the athlete that Singleton was going to be the like when he shows up to the combine, everybody's gonna be like, okay, this dude is like Saquon Barkley
He's a freak. Yes.
level athlete. Yeah, he's special.
He's a freak. He's a freak. At number 4 on this list, or excuse me, number 3 on this list, this quarterback class, the freshman quarterback class, is potentially outstanding. And who do we get to see start first? There's Arch Manning at Texas, Malachi Nelson at USC, Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee, Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, and my personal favorite, my number 1 quarterback in the freshman class, is this kid from Detroit King who went to UC, who's at UCLA right now, Dante Moore. Game ready. I call him a game manager. I do not mean that to be a pejorative. I mean that he's somebody who's going to find the open man, find them quickly. I think he's a player that's going to be hard to sack. And he's playing in Chip Kelly's offense. And Chip Kelly produced Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who everybody seems to like now for Cleveland, and Marcus Mariota, who won a Heisman Trophy. So he, pairs this up-tempo read option offense with Dante Moore. We've been doing this for about 3 years. I don't think that we've seen 5 quarterbacks deep where there's a match between talent and landing spot. Like sometimes you get like a talented quarterback, but they go to Miami or Michigan. Terrible landing spot. J.J. McCarthy. Like a good quarterback who goes to a poor landing spot. Steve Sarkisian in Texas, great landing spot. Lincoln Riley at USC, great landing spot. Josh Heupel, Tennessee, great landing spot. Jeff Lebby, who was the offensive coordinator for Matt Corral's last year at Ole Miss, great landing spot. Chip Kelly, great landing spot. Like we got great landing spots for all of these guys, and they're all talented. Who do we see first? UCLA has not announced a starter yet. Dante Moore is competing with Ethan Garbers there for the starting position. There's the potential that we get our second freshman announced as the starter. Jaden Rashada at Arizona State has been announced as the starter already. There's the potential that Dante Moore is the second player announced as the starter.
It'll be Garbers, but Moore will start more games than he will.
Yeah, I agree. Number two is who is the quarterback 3 behind Caleb Williams and Drake May. There are a lot of guys to apply for this position. Allegedly, Quinn Ewers at Texas. He's really hyped. The aforementioned J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. I would watch out for Michael Pratt at Tulane. Now, Mox, you're on board with me. Michael Pratt, I think, has one of the stronger arms in college football. In Austin,
we were mocked. We were mocked and ridiculed for saying that.
We were mocked and ridiculed for saying that.
I compare him to G5 Will Levis.
Yes, that's a good comparison.
I really don't think that's a bad comp. And I mean, look at what the hype Levis got in the NFL.
Yes.
One day 2, but if Michael Pratt goes early day, like round 2, that's a win, I think.
Yeah. He beat USC last year, beat Caleb Williams. He nearly beat he nearly beat Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma 2 years ago. The year before, nearly led a comeback there at the end. Michael Pratt is a gamer who started as a freshman.
I love Michael Pratt.
I do too. We talked about him on our podcast feed. Check out the Campus2Canton podcast feed. And the number 1 storyline that I'm watching, Chris Moxley, it's Colorado. It's got to be Colorado. It's got to be Coach Prime. That's what everybody's talking about. They had 50 players transfer into that school, some of whom have already transferred out. I'm going to be at the game on September 9th. I can't wait for that game.
Go Buffs.
It's Colorado. Go Buffs. Tune in tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you then. Peace.
It's good. The job is done. We can go home now.